Hello, this is Dr. William Balco at University of North Georgia, presenting you with the preliminary results of a pilot study we conducted exploring stone tool analysis from 9DW276, Rice Farm. This is our site in Dawson County, Georgia. My co-authors on this presentation include Dr. Kat Sterner from Towson University, as well as Renae Brown, Taylor Salinas, Sasha Correa, and Anna Grace Johnson, all of University of North Georgia. So let's begin with a very brief overview of the Rice Farm site for those who may not be familiar with the site. This site is located in Dawson County, right on the Etowah River. It is a site that was first identified in 2018, and we did a little bit of field work in 2018. I ran an archaeological field school through University of North Georgia at the site in 2019, as well as a lot of weekend days where we could get volunteers involved. And then in 2020, of course, as you know, COVID hit, and we really didn't do anything out there at all in 2020. We had a ground-penetrating radar survey, but no ground-disturbing activities in 2020. And then we returned in 2021 for several different excavation campaigns. The site is situated right along the banks of the Etowah River on a floodplain, and we have thus far excavated 141 1x1 meter test units. As you can see the map over on the right, the Etowah River is situated a little to the right of this. As you can see, there's a big block that we've excavated where we're following some stuff out, and then there's some other test areas we've been targeting individual GPR anomalies in order to kind of understand the site over time and the spatial distribution of different components of it as well. During the excavation of this site, we've identified several structures, and so I'm pretty confident in saying that what we have at Rice Farm is a Middle Woodland hamlet or possibly village site. We're not quite sure yet. We've identified 4 structures. 3 of them, 1, 3, and 4, are kind of clustered together, and then structure 2 was located elsewhere, where we actually have the structural remains. The posts are in situ. And then we have all the pits as well. The site, just to clarify, to provide a point of clarification here, the site is called Rice Farm not because of the food or the plant rice, but rather it's the name of the family that owns the property. Therefore, it's their farm. It's what we're referring to as Rice Farm. It has nothing to do with rice, the food. This is a misnomer I'm forever going to be explaining after identifying the site and naming it after the family. So that's my bad. All right. Anyway, during our excavations of the site in 2018 and then again in 2019, we identified and recovered a number of different stone tools. Many of these are quartz stone tools. Quartz is ubiquitous across North Georgia. There's really very few chert outcrops, therefore most of the stone tools are quartz. And as Walkup characterized different stone tool types, one of the types that he named for North Georgia were quartz crude points. He wasn't kidding. These are truly crude-looking points. They would have done the job that they needed. They were, I don't want to say they were expedient tools, but they were tools. There's just not a whole lot we can do with them because quartz is very difficult to work with, and quartz is very difficult to study. We also have some chert tools, not a whole lot of them. The majority of the chert tools that we have are made from ridge and valley chert coming from northwest Georgia. We have a little bit of coastal plain chert, and then we have a few flakes here and there of different kinds of chert that we're really not sure on where it's coming from. So we do have some unknowns, as every project likely does. So we have our stone tools, and we wanted to really study ancient diet. So we wanted to conduct a pilot study on ancient diet. While we were excavating on this site, interestingly enough, we have 0 evidence of faunal remains. We have no fish bone, no fish scales, no animal bone whatsoever. The soil just doesn't seem to preserve faunal remains at all. So one of my students at one point in time said, well, obviously they were vegetarians or vegans. And I said, well, we need to get creative and come up with a different avenue of evidence that we can study to determine what their diet was. So one of the things we came up with was this protein residue analysis. So we decided to conduct a pilot study of these stone tools, relying on protein residue analysis coupled with a useware analysis to identify the use of these tools, what they may have been cutting or hunting, and how they may have been used throughout their use life itself. So protein residue analysis is something that is relatively new. It's gaining more and more use as more and more projects get funding for it. Protein residue analysis studies blood residue. And on stone tools, if you're going to go hunting or if you are butchering something, you are likely covering that stone tool in blood during its use. Therefore, we can use what we call crossover immunoelectrophoresis, or CIEP, to identify different blood residues that may be preserved on that stone tool. Here, we partnered with Archaeological Investigations Northwest Incorporated, based out of Portland, Oregon. This is a lab that Dr. Sterner has used for a variety of different investigations she's worked with, including a lot of work in the Midwest. And she's very happy with the work they do, and I defer to her whenever it comes to anything stone tool. So we secured funding from University of North Georgia Center for Undergraduate Research and Creative Activities, and that's really what gave us the ability to conduct this study. So for the protein residue analysis, again, this is a pilot study, and we were very limited by our budget. We had 7 samples. Our N was 7. And we tested these 7 stone tools against deer, dog, human, bear, rabbit, and chicken anti-serums, or anti-sera. And right now, everybody's probably looking up going, wait, chicken? Yes, we are not proposing that there were chickens in the Middle Woodland period. The site is firmly dated to the Middle Woodland. We are not proposing that. You test chicken anti-sera in order to test to see if they were hunting turkey. Turkey is, in terms of the blood serum, if you test for chicken, you can pick up turkey. That's what I've been told. I don't know the physics behind it. I don't know the biology behind it, but that's what we did. We could have tested for waterfowl. We could have tested for turtles or for fish. We didn't. As it stands, the lab that we use does not have a anti-sera for any kind of turtles or fish, so we didn't have that ability. It's certainly possible that they were hunting turtles and fish or waterfowl. So, unfortunately, after conducting the protein residue analysis, we had no positive reactions. That means that none of the 7 stone tools that we submitted had any detectable dog, deer, human, bear, rabbit, or chicken/turkey anti-sera on them. So it was a little discouraging, but at the same time we thought, well, again, we don't have faunal remains on the site, so the soil chemistry is probably not helping us when it comes to preservation. So here's where we kind of go into our second component of this analysis, and this is where I think the really good analysis is being conducted. This is where we have our Useware analysis. Here, the microscopy associated with the Useware analysis was conducted by Dr. Kat Sterner, my colleague at Towson University. She's also a co-author here. She selected 17 stone tools for Useware analysis, and these stone tools that she selected were mainly chert stone tools. She only selected a few quartz stone tools because, as she's explained, quartz is very, very difficult to look at underneath a microscope, just because the nature of the quartz stone itself does not help. It's very reflective, and you just can't see anything when you're looking for those micro scratches on the surface. So with her 17 results, there are some very interesting results we found. All 17 of these artifacts, again, just want to reinforce this, they were recovered during our 2018 and 2019 investigations. None of the 2021 materials is being reported in this preliminary result of our pilot study. We are currently working on that 2021 material, and we'll get into that later. So just to kind of go through, I'm not going to go through all 17 of her different stone tools that she analyzed, but let's just go through a few of these here. Here we have a triangular point made out of ridge and valley chert. She says that there's polish located on the proximal and medial portion, and that's from hafting. That there are striations that are strictly parallel to the proximal end, and these strictly parallel striations are key because it suggests a movement of the tool back and forth against the haft. It basically means that the tool was loose within the haft and it's kind of shaking within there. If the striations were post-depositional, they would have been multi-directional. So this really shows that the tool was kind of loosely held within its within the hafting. Polish lines along the dorsal and ventral sides where the hafting element was located had ended. Therefore, you can see where the hafting was. And you get meat polish on the ventral and distal end from use. So finally, we see meat polish. So we have evidence that they are cutting animal meat. I don't want to say they're eating it, but they're cutting animal meat at the very minimum. You have no idea how happy this made me, after finding 0 faunal remains and really wondering, what were these people doing? Was this some kind of a seasonal camp that was very elaborate, and they just did not eat meat at it? So, all right. Next, we have a post-depositional. We have a bifurcated point where we see some post-depositional grit polish on some high ridges. We have silica and plant polish on the dorsal and medial ridge. This is likely from hafting. Striations were parallel to the lateral margins, and plant polish was located along the medial break, and this had accrued prior to the break of the artifact itself. So this tool was used for cutting plant material prior to being broken, which shows that they're using these tools to cut both plant material and meat, which would be completely expected. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here, but we're saying, look, we're seeing what we were expecting here. Okay, our next one is a point tip. Here, there's meat polish on both the dorsal and ventral sides of the distal end, and this is from its use as a projectile. There's minimal polish on the dorsal ridge. Of course, because this artifact had been broken and we only see the tip, there's no conclusive evidence of hafting. So we have, they're a hunting element here, obviously. This next one, another ridge and valley, a really nice ridge and valley point that has been reworked down into a tiny little nub. Here we see meat polish on both the dorsal and ventral sides of the distal end, and that's from use. Also, generic weak polish along the medial ridge on both surfaces. So there's no clear hafting wear on the proximal end, but the lack of polish there, she assures me, suggests that this artifact was hafted. And being that it's side notched, I would assume that it would be hafted anyway. So, all right, this next one, this is actually one of the more interesting ones, one of my favorites actually. Here, this artifact shows significant evidence of wet hide polish all along the working edge. So not only are they possibly hunting or cutting or butchering, but here we see that they are scraping hides. An initial examination of microflaking along the distal end suggested post-depositional damage. However, there is some polish development within the flake scars, and this suggests damage from use. So this thing was used quite a bit for scraping wet hides. So generic weak polish on the proximal end suggests that the tool had been hafted. So you have basically a hafted scraper here. So our brief conclusions, you might be saying, well, there's not a whole lot that you're saying. Well, we are confirming a few things here. First, the soil chemistry was not conducive for the preservation of blood residue. This confirms what we suspected based on our absolute lack of faunal remains. Second, our Useware analysis can identify past use of these tools, but this is, again, limited to chert tools. We have no ability at the moment to conduct any kind of Useware on quartz tools, so we know that that's something that we could do in the future, possibly, if we can get that figured out. And finally, Here we can say the Middle Woodland period Native Americans at Rice Farm cut meat and scraped hides. And that may seem very simple. It may seem very juvenile, but honestly, it is something that we suspected was going on, but we had no evidence because we had no faunal material. So we really wanted to see clear evidence that there was something related to the processing of faunal material, and here we have it with the Useware. This site has been clearly dated to the Middle Woodland period based on several AMS dates, based on oak charcoal, carbonized wood from quercus trees, as well as from several acorns that are carbonized. So those are all dated to about 1850 BP. So that's firmly within the Middle Woodland period, and that confirms what we suspected based on the pottery assemblage that's mainly Cartersville assemblage. So we know this is a Middle Woodland site. We know Native Americans are living at this Middle Woodland site, and now we know that they are cutting meat and they're scraping hides. And that very simple result makes me incredibly happy. So for future directions here, well, we are planning to do more extensive analysis of the stone tools at Rice Farm, and this includes the 2021 excavation campaigns. In 2021, we were there in March for 8 days excavating Structure 1. We were there again in the summer, in May and June, conducting an archaeological field school where we identified Structures 3 and 4, as well as some other areas that we targeted anomalies that had been detected by the GPR. And right now we are gearing up for a October excavation campaign that's going to last 2 weeks. So all that 2021 excavation material, once we get it processed and we get it sorted out, I don't want to clean the tools, the stone tools, because I send them to Dr. Sterner and she deals with it. Kat deals with all that. But she will be including all that 2020 material or 2021 material among the 2018-2019 season's material. And this will help us to better contextualize past tool use at the site. We then plan to publish our results in a peer-reviewed outlet. We're aiming for lithic technology, but that could change depending on the direction of the paper once we get it going. So thank you very much. I would like to thank UNG's Center for Undergraduate Research and Creative Activities. They provided the grant for the students to conduct this research. This was actually a student-led research project, which is really fun. We also would like to thank UNG's History, Anthropology, and Philosophy Department for funding portions of the Archaeological Field School. We'd like to thank Billy and Teresa Rice, of course, for accommodating us and welcoming us onto their property and allowing us to put holes in their garden area and really learn about the site. They're very, very interested in the site, and they're wonderful, wonderful hosts. And finally, we would like to thank the volunteers and students who excavated on the site and put in all that hard work to recover this material. If anybody has any questions, you can contact me, Dr. William Balco, at william.balco, that's spelled B as in boy, ALCO, at UNG.edu. Thank you.